breakdowns in 24 hours. Somehow I'm thinking the RV life might not be for me anymore. Let's talk about it right now. Hey there, how are you? Dr. Dave, the RV dummy. We just had a little situation, or let's say two situations. Yoko and I were camping down in southern Utah just a couple days ago. We were camped for 2 days at a beautiful place. God, I can't even think of the name of the place. It's a state park in southern Utah, but it was, let's just say it was beautiful. We had great weather. Everything was perfect. And then we decided to stay 2 nights at a hotel in Zion, right outside Zion National Park, which we really love. And we just were in the mood to, you know, we don't stay in the rig all the time, but sometimes we get a room. So we were in the mood to stay in a kind of a cool, kind of semi-luxurious place outside of Zion National Park, which we did. And we pulled into this hotel, and I said to Yoko, it looks like there's a pool of liquid or something underneath the van. What's going on? So we looked underneath, and sure enough, it looked like radiator fluid was coolant was leaking out all under the RV. So thinking, oh my God, here we are. We're down in Zion, southern Utah, far from home. It's leaking. We got to fix this. So the first thought was, I made a couple calls. It was hard to find somebody. People were closed and all this stuff. So we have some special tape, and Yoko, being the great mechanic that she is, and she's real handy, and she's got her hands can like do anything. So she got under the van, and I was handing her the special tape, and we were trying to tape up the radiator hose, just temporary, at least to see if we can get it to stop leaking and enough to get us home. It was about a 4-hour drive. We could be going home about 2 days later. And if we taped it really, really well, and and we tested it, I'd be okay at least taking the ride back up to Salt Lake City. But as much as she tried, and she tried really, really hard, she couldn't get the tape to stick because it was wet, coolant was leaking out. It was kind of dripping, not leaking really fast, but it was wet enough that she couldn't really get good tape around it. We tried like 3 different types of tapes, and one was particularly designed to do this kind of thing, but it just wouldn't take. It just wouldn't do it. So I started calling around, and I found a guy that was located about 45 minutes away. He's a mobile tech, not really an RV tech, but a mobile mechanic. And I want to give a little shout out to him. Is Mike from Hot Shots Mobile Repair told me that he could come out the very next day and he could take care of it. So sure enough, Mike comes out the next day. I was super, super impressed. I'm going to see if I can put a couple pictures up here, but Mike has like a full service vehicle that he can like do any type of mechanical repair right from his vehicle. Even if it's dark out, it's cold, if it's snowing, whatever, he can do anything. So he told me in advance that what does he charge? He charged was it 85 or 95 or 85 an hour for labor, and he said even his drive, which would be about 45 minutes, that's included. And that's fair enough. I mean, I'm willing to pay a guy to drive to come fix my rig. So he came that next evening, totally prepared, started working. Nice guy. I mean, this guy really, really cared a lot about the quality of the work he did. I mean, of course, everybody's in business to make money. There's no question about that. You got to pay the bills and everything. But Mike really, really cared, and he took his time and did a really nice, thorough job. And he even double coated the new hose that he put in there. So he said if it hits up against anything, it's not going to rupture. So I was very, very appreciative and gladly paid him his bill, which by the time, it was an expensive hose. This is for a Ford E350, the main radiator hose, which has like other hoses coming off of it. It took him quite a while. The hose itself was $125. And with coolant and his labor and everything, the whole thing came to $544.91. And guess what? I Venmo'd him the money right when he finished, and I was more than happy to pay him. And now I know I've got a guy in southern Utah based out of St. George, Hurricane, in that area, Zion, or kind of in that area, that if I am ever, and Yoko and I are down there quite a bit, if we ever have any kind of mechanical problem with our car or our RV, I've got the guy that I know is going to take care of me. And I'm going to give him a shout out because Mike is a really good guy, and I promised that, let's see, I've got one of his cards right here too. Hot Shots Mobile repair. So if you're in Southern Utah, whether you're visiting or live there or anywhere, he's the man. Mike is the man. He's honest. He really cares a lot. We had a really good conversation, and I really enjoyed having Mike help me out quite a bit. And Mike, if you're watching this, thanks so much, man. I appreciate you. So the next morning, Yoko and I get in our van. We're ready to head back to Salt Lake City. We're about an hour and a half to 2 hours into the trip. And Yoko says Yoko's driving, and she notices some weird emergency lights come on, and we heard a weird noise. First of all, she noticed some weird emergency lights come on the panel, and it didn't look good. It was like some kind of check engine, and also it was a picture of a battery. I think something was wrong with the alternator, because I'm looking at the battery voltage. I've got like a little gauge, and the battery voltage is going down. Usually when we're driving, it's up around 14 volts, but now it's going down to like 12 something, 11 something. I knew it wasn't good. And as she's driving, I see the engine started to overheat, and she's losing her power steering. I'm thinking, oh, luckily we are like 3 to 5 miles outside of a little place called Beaver, Utah. Yes, you heard me right. It's called Beaver. Everybody loves Beaver, Utah. But so I said, Yoko, if we can just make it to Beaver, I know there are places right off the interstate there. There's like a bunch of truck stops and garages and gas stations, things like that. So I wasn't going to chance. I didn't want to just stop on the interstate. That would have been, we would have had to get towed. We could still drive. So we drove the few miles. It was not fun. It was stressful. It was not good. But we drove the few miles and made it to a little repair shop in Beaver. Now, this place, as it turned out, I couldn't really tell. As by the way, as we're turning in, Yoko says she can't even turn the wheel. The power steering was out, and it was very difficult. And I'm screaming. She's saying, "Where do I go?" And I said, "Just go there. Just park there." And she said, "Where?" And it was crazy. But we finally made it to this garage, and as it turned out, it was more of a tire place. It was more of a tire repair, tire, just, you know, they do tires. It was more like that. So I found the guy that's kind of in charge, and I said, "Are you a tire place, or do you do repairs?" And he said, "Well, we do minor repairs." But his name was Yancey, by the way. And I said, I think we busted something. It looks like it might be a belt or something's hanging." And he looked under the van, and he said, "Yeah, sure enough." He started pulling it out. He said, "Sure enough, it's your serpentine belt." He said, "Did you lose your power steering?" I said, "Absolutely. We were pulling in here, and my wife couldn't even steer. It was really scary." He said, "Yeah." He said he really doesn't not do work like that. So I'm thinking, oh, we're really screwed. But then the next breath, Yancey said, "But I'm going to call a guy for you." Now, Yancey had no responsibility to help me out. It was his shop, but he didn't do that kind of work. And so he could have just said, "You got to call somebody on your own." But he said, let me, I know somebody that can do this for you. Let me call him. So Yancey went into the back, called a guy, came out a few minutes later, said, "My man Jason is going to be here in 15 minutes. I said, "He's going to come to me? That's incredible." I said, "Well, is it a difficult job? Is he going to need a lift?" He said, "Well, if he needs a lift, I'll just let him use mine." I mean, guess what? There are some good people left in this world. It's so cool to know they're good people. Yancey really cared, even though he wasn't going to really get anything out of it. He really cared about us. So sure enough, it took a little longer than 15 minutes, and that's fine. But Jason pulled up in his blue pickup truck, and before I even was able to get it, we were waiting in the van because it was a little chilly. Before I even got out of the van, I had the hood up. He's already at work, starting to work on the thing. He brought a serpentine belt. By the way, for those of you that don't know what a serpentine belt, it's like the main belt that runs all the pulleys and I'm not a mechanic, but it does like everything. And if you just want to have an idea what it looks like, you want to see what a busted serpentine belt looks like. This is what a busted one looks like. It was just broken. It was bad. It was really bad. So sure enough, in 30 minutes or so, he had a brand new serpentine belt installed on our vehicle. He said, "Okay, do me a favor. My shop is about 2 miles down the road. Are you comfortable getting in your rig, following me over to my shop?" Remember, we have not paid him a dime yet. He said, "Can you follow me over to my shop? I want to check it over. I want to make sure that when the belt broke, it didn't damage anything else. We'll give it a good check over. I want to top your fluid off, top your coolant off, and I'll write you up a bill, and I'll get you on the road." I said, "Absolutely." Again, a heck of a nice guy. We followed him over. He took care of everything. topped off our coolant, made sure there was no leaks. He hooked the pressure thing up to our coolant, made sure there were no leaks anywhere, and gave me the bill. Guess what? First of all, here's his card. If you're ever in Beaver, Utah, he's the guy. If you want tires, go to Yancey. If you want, and Yancey's place is called Beaver Tire Center. If you want anything else mechanical with your rig or with your car, anything, you go to my man, Jason, Divine Auto. So we've got connections now in Beaver, which is about midway between Salt Lake City and very southern Utah. We got connections in Beaver. I got connections in southern Utah. I gladly paid his bill, which was, I think, a very, very fair $279. Remember, he made a service call. He came out to us. He did the work remotely. We followed him back. He took a lot of time. I was more than happy to pay him that kind of money. So we were done. We made it back safely to Salt Lake City. Now, the question is this life for me? Now I'm kind of worried. You know, every time I get in this rig, is something going to happen? Is something going to break down? Are we going to be stranded in the middle of nowhere? I did a previous video. We bought a satellite phone just in case. Suppose Yoko and I travel some places in Utah where they're very, very remote and we're on a dirt road, or we could be somewhere on BLM land, or we could be in the middle of nowhere with no cell reception. Now, if it happened there, it's a lot more difficult to get somebody to come out. But with our satellite phone, even if there's no cell service with our satellite phone, I can call these guys. And sure, you got to pay them to drive the distance to get to you, but they're more than willing, and they're really nice people, and they care. And I feel confident we could get somebody to help us almost anywhere we are. So it takes a little bit of the worry. It takes a little bit of the anxiety off of, you know, having a breakdown in the middle of nowhere. Luckily, both of these places were not really in the middle of nowhere. Sometimes we're on a stretch of interstate that there might not be a place for 50, 60, 70 miles. Luckily, we were 3, 4, 5 miles out of Beaver, Utah, which was very, very fortunate. So as stressful as the whole thing was yesterday and the day before, we got it all done. We got it all fixed, which is really great. And again, I want to give a shout out to these guys who were super, super, super helpful. Am I going to give up RVing? No, I'm not. No time soon. We love it too much. We have a great time. And we've had this rig for 2.5 years now. And I'd say this is really the first time we've ever had like a true mechanical issue. I mean, you know, these things don't run on love alone. You got to maintain them, and things do happen. They're mechanical. And one time, you remember in one of my old videos, we were in New Orleans, or outside of New Orleans, and we had our refrigerator that broke, and we had a mobile RV tech that came out. So things like that do happen. But as far as mechanical breakdowns where you can't even drive the vehicle, this is the first time ever. I hope it'll be the last time in quite some time. I can't say it's never going to happen again, but I hope we've got many miles ahead of us now that are safe and maintenance free. And I always get things checked. I'm always on top of my maintenance and my oil changes, and I have my mechanic locally here in Salt Lake always check things, but you can never predict 100%. You just can't. So again, it was crazy 24 hours. We have it all repaired. Everything's good here inside. Everything's fine. Everything's solid, and we're ready to get back out on the road. Who knows when? It's very cold here now, but we will be back out on the road. We'll be back out on the road safely. Until next time, Dr. Dave, the RV Dummy.